All right, today we're diving into a really powerful piece of fiction called After Nanjing. Now, this isn't a history lesson. Instead, it's a story that takes us deep, really deep, into the mind of one soldier, a man named Koichi, and his lifelong struggle with what happens after the fighting stops.
The story gives us this line, something Koichi writes years and years later. I came back alive, but maybe only my body came back. Wow. That one sentence is really the heart of this entire story, isn't it? It just perfectly captures this deep feeling of being disconnected, the sense that the real him, the person he was before the war, just never made it home. It's all about a self that was lost.
So, to really get what he lost, we have to see what he had to begin with, right? The story starts out on this totally normal, quiet morning in Koichi's village. It's setting the scene, giving us this baseline of just peace and normal life, a life that's about to be completely shattered. And the way the story does this is just brilliant. It's all about these little sensory details. The smell of the earth, the sound of his mom working in the kitchen, his little sister Chio begging for candy. These aren't just random facts, you guys. This is the stuff of life. It's the texture of his world, his connection to his family, to home, to a world that actually makes sense. But even in this perfectly normal scene, you can feel this heavy, unspoken tension. His dad asks if he got a summons from the village office. Nobody says the word draft. They don't have to. The silence in that room is heavier than any word possibly could be. Everyone knows. This life, this normal morning, is about to end. And just like that quiet village life is completely ripped away. It's replaced by the brutal, shocking reality of military training. This part of the story is called Shedding Human Skin, and man, is that a chillingly perfect way to describe what's about to happen. It's the beginning of a total dehumanization process. This comparison just perfectly shows how his entire world gets turned upside down. Look at it. The gentle sounds of his home, like his mother's voice or his sister's laugh, they're all gone, replaced by screaming and orders. The smell of the soil he grew up with? Nope, that's replaced by the sound of fists hitting flesh. His entire reality is being just violently rewritten. And this isn't some subtle thing. This is the actual philosophy spoken out loud by the drill instructor. He tells them flat out, this isn't about building soldiers. It's about dismantling human beings. The entire point is to strip away everything that made Koichi who he was back in that quiet village. So how do they actually do this? Well, it's a kind of psychological conditioning, and it's built on 3 main rules. There's this one moment where Koichi, just on instinct, tries to help a friend who falls down. And for that, he gets beaten. The lesson is simple, and it's brutal. Do not help. Compassion is a weakness. Empathy will get you killed. Your own humanity? That's the first enemy you have to destroy. Okay, so we go from the training camp straight to the front lines. Now, this next part is about Koichi's time in Nanjing, but it's not told like a normal story, A to B to C. Instead, it's told in these sharp, disconnected flashes, like fragments of a nightmare, which, is exactly how the human brain often processes extreme trauma. The first memory flash is an act of violence he's forced to do. He sees the face of a man, maybe his father's age, and the man isn't looking at him with hate or anger. He's just looking. And then nothing. There's just this blank space in his memory, a total disconnect between getting the order and what happened next. All that's left is this weird, terrifying emptiness. Then, another memory hits him. He's in a house, and he sees a child. And just for a split second, a heartbreaking second, her eyes remind him of his own sister, Chio. And that tiny flicker of human connection, that's what sears this moment into his brain forever. It's what makes it so unbearable. Another flash, just a small shoe, a child's shoe, lying on the floor. It's such a tiny, ordinary thing to notice in the middle of all that chaos. But that's the point, isn't it? It's a trace of the normal life that was there just moments before it was destroyed. It's a symbol of the humanity that was just erased. And the last thing he remembers is the silence. Not a peaceful silence, but this jarring, totally unnatural stillness that comes right after the violence. And when you see all these broken pieces, you start to get it. His mind is shattering the memory, because looking at the whole horrifying picture all at once would be just too much to handle. And it's in the middle of all this that he has this moment of terrible clarity.
He understands, even as it's happening, that something inside of him has been fundamentally broken. Permanently. The person he was, the boy who left that village, he's gone. And he's never coming back.
So the fighting stops, the war is officially over. But for Koichi, it never really ends. He brings it home with him. And it's not just a bad memory. It's like a living thing, a poison that seeps into every single part of his new normal life. And you can see it play out over his entire lifetime. He gets back home, and the sound of a bowl dropping makes him flinch like it's a gunshot. His body is still on the battlefield. He marries a wonderful, kind woman, Sawa, but he can't truly connect with her. That part of him, the part that knows how to love and feel safe, it's just broken. And then he becomes a father, and he's haunted by the memories of other children. The war isn't something that happened in the past. It's a shadow that follows him every single day for the rest of his life. So for decades, Koichi's just living with a silent, internal war. And then a turning point comes from a place you might not expect, his quiet, watchful father. And this starts a whole new kind of battle for Koichi, a very lonely one, fought one sentence at a time, inside an old notebook. His dad's advice is so simple, but it's incredibly profound. He doesn't ask what happened, he doesn't demand a confession, he just gives him a tool, a way to face the truth. And that little phrase, "don't write lies," becomes Koichi's new mission. It's a direct challenge to all the years he spent trying to bury everything. The first truths he manages to get down on paper are hard. They're stark. Takes, his friend from the barracks, a quiet kid who loved books. Koichi asked to write this simple, ugly fact. I left him behind. Yeah, it was an order, but writing it down like that forces him to face his own part in it. It strips away all the excuses. And as he keeps writing, over the years, the honesty gets deeper and a lot more painful. He starts moving past just writing about what was done to him, and he starts to confront what was going on inside of him. He admits his fear, not to make an excuse, but to own it as a core part of what happened. This is him, slowly, painfully, taking back a story he spent a lifetime trying to run away from. So this all builds to a final moment when Koichi is an old man. After a whole lifetime of fighting these private battles in his notebook, he sits down to write one last confession. He's finally trying to put all those broken fragments together and face the whole entire truth of his past. And what he finally arrives at is this dual truth. It's so important. For decades, he only saw himself as a victim, someone who the war machine broke and dehumanized. And that was true. But now, he writes the other half of that sentence. I also broke others. He has to finally admit that he was both. He was a victim and he was a perpetrator. And that acknowledgement is the final, most agonizing step of his entire life. This is the very last line he writes, and it's an apology that he knows will probably never be heard. The people he needs to say it to, they're gone. He's not looking for forgiveness. He can't get it. But the act of writing it down, of finally bearing witness to his own actions, that becomes everything. It's something he has to do for himself. And that's where the story leaves us. It doesn't wrap things up with a neat little bow about forgiveness or redemption. It doesn't give us any easy answers. Instead, it just leaves us with this enormous question, forcing us to really think about the enduring, messy, complicated cost of war, a price that isn't just paid on the battlefield, but for every single day of a lifetime that follows.